Rain came down in sheets, hard enough to blur the city into streaks of white and red. Midnight traffic hissed past, indifferent, as an elderly woman sat hunched beneath a flickering streetlight, her thin coat useless against the cold. Water clung to her gray hair. Her hands shook not just from the storm, but from something deeper: confusion, fear, forgetting. Across the street, a black nurse stepped out of the hospital doors, exhaustion heavy in her shoulders after a double shift. She was halfway to her car when she noticed the woman hadn't moved. Hadn't even flinched when thunder cracked overhead. She crossed the road, instincts overriding fatigue. Up close, the signs were unmistakable. Vacant eyes, fragmented focus, the fragile stillness of a mind no longer anchored. "I'm waiting," the woman whispered. "Waiting for who?" The nurse swallowed, pulled out her phone, and dialed the number found inside the woman's pocket. It rang. The call connected. On the other end, someone answered. And said nothing. If you're ready for a story about power, dignity, forbidden love, and the sweetest revenge you've ever witnessed, then you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because this channel brings you the most addictive romance stories you won't find anywhere else. Drop a fire in the comments if you're team revenge. And let's get into this story. The line stayed open. No greeting. No question. Just a low, steady presence on the other end, like someone listening through a door they already owned. The nurse didn't give her name. She didn't ask who she was speaking to. Years in trauma wards had taught her that silence could be more dangerous than screaming, and this silence felt deliberate. Measured. Waiting. "I found her," she said finally, keeping her voice even. Professional. The same tone she used when delivering bad news to families at 3 in the morning. "She's outside. She's cold. She's disoriented." A breath came through the receiver. Slow. Controlled. "Where?" the voice asked. One word. No wasted syllables. She gave the intersection. The voice repeated it once, as if committing it to memory, then the call ended. No goodbye. No reassurance. The nurse lowered the phone and realized her hand was shaking. Behind her, the elderly woman swayed, knees buckling. Instinct snapped into place. The nurse moved without thinking, guiding her gently to sit on the low concrete ledge near the bus stop, positioning her back against the wind. She shrugged out of her own jacket and wrapped it around the woman's shoulders, ignoring the cold biting through her scrubs. "Hi," she said softly, crouching to eye level. "My name's Naomi. I'm a nurse. You're safe right now." The woman blinked at her, rain clinging to her lashes. "He said to wait," she murmured. "He always says to wait." Naomi noted the details automatically. Slurred but coherent speech. No obvious signs of stroke. Skin pale, cold to the touch. Mild tremor. Likely hypothermia layered over something cognitive. Dementia, maybe? Or worse. She checked the woman's pulse, weak but steady, then gently lifted one wrist, revealing a thin gold bracelet beneath the sleeve. There was no hospital band. No address. Just a name engraved in careful script and a single phone number etched below it. No. Call if found. No. Medical alert. Just a number. That alone unsettled her. "Do you remember where you came from?" Naomi asked. The woman frowned, as if the question were in a language she no longer spoke. "There are gates," she said slowly. "Tall ones. Men who don't smile." Naomi's eyes flicked up, scanning the street. This wasn't a nursing home. Not with gates. Not with guards. And if the woman had wandered off from somewhere secure, protocol was clear: call the police. Let them handle it. Protect yourself. But protocol didn't sit with the way the woman clutched her hand, fingers surprisingly strong, as if letting go would mean disappearing entirely. Naomi pulled the bracelet closer to the streetlight and read the number again. Something about it nagged at her. No area code she recognized. Too few digits for local. Too deliberate to be random. She thought of the voice on the phone. The absence of panic. The way he hadn't asked who she was, or how she'd found the woman. He hadn't thanked her. Hadn't even acknowledged the danger. He just asked where. "You live somewhere safe?" Naomi pressed gently. The woman nodded, then shook her head. It used to be, she whispered. Before I forgot. That did it. Naomi exhaled, reached into her bag, and pulled out a foil emergency blanket she kept for car breakdowns. She wrapped it around the woman carefully, sealing in what little heat she had left. Her movements were efficient, practiced. Invisible work. The kind no one noticed unless it wasn't done. A siren wailed somewhere in the distance. Naomi glanced at her phone again, thumb hovering over the emergency dial. One call and this would no longer be her responsibility. One call and she could walk away, knowing she'd done the right thing. Instead, she looked at the bracelet. She'd seen fear before. She'd held it while it screamed and while it went quiet. This wasn't fear of the storm. This was fear of being alone. Minutes passed. The rain intensified. Then Naomi heard it. Not a siren, not footsteps, but the low hum of an engine cutting through the storm. Headlights appeared at the far end of the street, too steady, too controlled. They didn't weave through traffic or slow uncertainly. They advanced with purpose, water parting around the tires like the road itself was making way. Naomi stood slowly, positioning herself between the car and the woman without consciously deciding to. The vehicle drew closer, sleek and dark, its windows tinted so deeply she couldn't see inside. No flashing lights. No markings. Just a presence that didn't belong to the night the way ambulances did. The car stopped at the curb. The engine kept running. And Naomi understood, too late, that whoever she had called, this was not help the way she'd meant it. The rear door opened without a sound. The man who stepped out did not rush. He didn't scan the street or flinch at the rain soaking instantly through his tailored coat. He moved as if the storm were an inconvenience, not a threat, each step precise, deliberate, owned. The light from the street lamp caught his face just long enough for Naomi to register the absence of softness. No wasted emotion. No hesitation. A face shaped by decisions that had never needed permission. His eyes went past her. Straight to the woman on the bench. He crossed the distance in 3 strides and dropped to one knee in front of his mother, rain darkening his hair, his coat pooling against the wet pavement. When he spoke, it wasn't in English. His voice lowered, softened, transformed into something intimate and controlled, the sharp edges carefully sheathed. The elderly woman's fingers tightened around his sleeve. You came, she whispered, relief blooming across her face like warmth returning to numb skin. He removed his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders with practiced care, tucking it in the way someone did only when they had done it before. Many times. He brushed rain from her hair, murmuring reassurances Naomi couldn't understand but didn't need translated. The cadence alone spoke of authority and protection. Then he lifted her, effortlessly, and turned toward the car. Only then did his gaze finally land on Naomi. It was like stepping into cold water. There was no gratitude in his eyes. No curiosity. Just assessment. Calculation. The briefest flicker of something sharp and unkind passed over her, like she had been reduced to a variable in an equation that already had an answer. You, he said. One word. Flat. Commanding. Naomi straightened instinctively, shoulders back, as if answering a superior at work. She was hypothermic, she said, professional reflex kicking in. Disoriented. I stabilized her as best I could. She shouldn't be. Get in the car. The driver had appeared beside her without sound, holding an umbrella she hadn't seen open. He was enormous, built like a wall, his face expressionless as stone. He didn't touch her, but he didn't need to. The implication hovered heavy in the rain. I can call an ambulance, Naomi said quickly. She needs to go home. The man interrupted. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. And you are done making decisions. The back door closed softly behind his mother. Naomi hesitated, every instinct screaming that this was wrong. That this wasn't protocol. That whatever world this man belonged to, she did not. I just helped her, Naomi said. That's all. He regarded her for a long second. Rain traced lines down his face, unmoved by it. No, he said. You involved yourself? The driver opened the front passenger door. The man stepped closer, close enough that Naomi could smell rain and something darker beneath it. Expensive, restrained, dangerous. You called the number, he continued quietly. You spoke when silence would have kept you safe. That makes you involved. The word landed heavy. Involved. Naomi felt the street shift beneath her feet, the ordinary world slipping away. Hospital lights. Break rooms. Protocols. None of it applied here. I'm a nurse, she said, clinging to the identity like a lifeline. I was doing my job. His gaze hardened. Your job ended when you dialed. The driver waited. Naomi looked at the street one last time, the bus stop, the empty bench, the rain swallowing all evidence that this moment had ever existed. No witnesses. No help coming. She got into the car. The door shut with a quiet finality that sounded uncomfortably like a lock. Inside, the silence was suffocating. The interior smelled of leather and something sharp and clean, like a place that never allowed chaos to settle. The man placed his mother gently beside him in the back, adjusting her seatbelt himself, murmuring again in that soft voice Naomi had heard only once. Then he looked forward. Drive. The car pulled away, tires cutting clean lines through standing water. Naomi watched the city slide past the window, her reflection pale and unfamiliar in the glass. Minutes passed before he spoke again. You will answer questions, he said calmly. You will not volunteer information. You will not call anyone. You will not leave. Naomi swallowed. Am I in trouble? He considered her question as if it amused him. That depends, he said, on how useful you continue to be. Her heart thudded painfully against her ribs. The car slowed as iron gates emerged from the darkness ahead, rising high and unyielding. Cameras tracked their approach. Guards stepped forward, faces hard, weapons concealed but unmistakably present. The gates opened without a word. Beyond them, an estate unfolded, vast, illuminated, surgically precise. A fortress disguised as a home. The car rolled to a stop beneath a covered entrance. As Naomi stepped out, rain still falling, the full weight of the place pressed in on her. This wasn't wealth. This was control. The man paused beside her, close enough that she felt the gravity of him again. You will stay here, he said, until I decide otherwise. Naomi looked at the gates closing behind them, sealing the world she knew on the other side. Fear bloomed, sharp and undeniable. This hadn't been a good deed. It had been a trigger. The room they put her in was too nice to be a cell. That was the first thing Naomi noticed. The bed was wide and neatly made, dressed in soft gray linens that smelled faintly of lavender. A private bathroom gleamed behind a frosted glass door. A window overlooked a manicured garden where stone paths cut through hedges trimmed with obsessive precision. Nothing was locked. Nothing was barred. And yet, when Naomi set her bag down and turned toward the door, she felt it immediately. She was not a guest. She was being stored. Two men stood at the end of the hallway outside her room. They didn't speak. They didn't pretend to be anything other than what they were. When she took a step forward, one of them shifted his weight just enough to remind her that movement here was a privilege, not a right. Her phone was gone. Taken quietly sometime between the car and the room. Her scrubs were replaced with clean clothes laid out on the bed, comfortable, neutral, deliberately unmemorable. The message was clear. You are safe. You are watched. You are not leaving. The first day passed in a blur of silence. Meals arrived without explanation. The staff moved through the corridors with eyes lowered and footsteps softened to near invisibility. No one lingered. No one made small talk. When Naomi tried to ask a question, the answers came clipped and cautious, like words themselves were liabilities. You won't be needed today, a housekeeper murmured when Naomi offered to help with anything. Please rest. Rest. It was the same word they used for patients whose lives were no longer theirs. By the second day, she realized her nursing credentials meant nothing here. She wasn't asked to check vitals. She wasn't consulted about medications. A private medical team came and went in quiet efficiency, their presence as discreet as the guards, their loyalty unmistakably elsewhere. She was not here because she was a nurse. She was here because she knew something. And because someone hadn't decided what to do with that knowledge yet. It was on the third morning that the lieutenant introduced himself. He appeared in the doorway of the sitting room where Naomi had been pacing, his arrival so smooth she didn't hear him until he spoke. "You must be bored," he said pleasantly. He was younger than she expected. Immaculately dressed. His smile was easy, practiced, almost charming, if you didn't look too closely at his eyes. Those stayed sharp. Measuring. "My name is Jihun," he continued, extending a hand that Naomi did not take. "I manage things when the boss is occupied." "I didn't ask to be here," Naomi replied. Jihun smiled wider, as if she'd said something amusing. "No one ever does." He gestured for her to sit. When she didn't, he sat instead, crossing one leg over the other with casual elegance. "You handled my employer's mother very well," he said. "Hypothermia. Confusion. You didn't panic." "I'm trained not to." "Yes," Jihun agreed. "But training doesn't explain compassion." Naomi felt the hair on her arms rise. "What do you want?" she asked. "Conversation," he said lightly. "Understanding. You see, unusual events tend to ripple outward. We like to know where those ripples lead." She chose her words carefully. "I found a lost woman. I made a call. That's all." Jihun tilted his head. "Is it?" He let the silence stretch. "You didn't call the police," he continued. "You didn't wait for assistance. You didn't leave. You wrapped her in your jacket. You spoke to her like family." Naomi said nothing. Jihun leaned back. "That tells me something about you." "And what does it tell you?" she asked. "That you don't act for reward," he said. "Which makes you dangerous." The smile never left his face. After that, he came often. Always polite. Always friendly. His questions never sounded like interrogations, but they circled the same points again and again. Her background, her routines, her habits. Who she called when she was scared. What she noticed first in a room. Whether she believed people changed. Naomi answered truthfully but sparingly. She'd spent her career reading between words. Jihun spoke in silk, but everything underneath it was wire. Between visits, she noticed things. The cameras didn't move when certain doors opened. Guards rotated on schedules that didn't quite align. A service corridor near the West Wing remained unmonitored for exactly 3 minutes during shift change. Too precise to be sloppy. She noticed how staff stiffened when Jihun passed. How conversations died the moment he entered a room. How relief crossed their faces when he left. Fear, she realized, had layers here. The only place it softened was in the mother's suite. Mrs. Park, she finally learned her name, seemed calmer in Naomi's presence. She remembered her sometimes. Other times she didn't. But she always reached for her hand, grounding herself in touch when memory failed. "You have warm hands," she told Naomi one afternoon, smiling faintly. "Like my son did before the world hardened him." Naomi swallowed at that. She sat with her during meals. Read to her when the words stayed. Listened when they didn't. In those quiet moments, the estate felt less like a fortress and more like a mausoleum filled with echoes of who people used to be. Sometimes, Naomi caught the boss watching from the doorway. He never interrupted. Never spoke. Just observed, as if measuring something he didn't fully understand. Those were the moments that frightened her most. Because she could feel it then. She wasn't just being watched. She was being weighed. Late one night, unable to sleep, Naomi wandered the corridor outside her room. The estate was quiet in a way that felt artificial, like silence enforced rather than earned. As she passed the half-open door near the West Wing, voices drifted out, low, urgent. She stopped. Jihun's voice carried clearly now, stripped of its easy charm. "Security was disengaged," he was saying. "Exactly when we needed it." Another voice answered, unfamiliar and tense. "If he finds out." "He won't," Jihun cut in. "Not unless someone tells him." Naomi's breath caught. "The woman wandering off worked better than expected," Jihun continued. "It exposed weakness. And now we know who interferes." Naomi's blood ran cold. She pressed herself against the wall, heart pounding, as realization settled heavy and unmistakable. The storm hadn't been an accident. And she hadn't been spared. She had been selected. Naomi didn't sleep. She lay on the edge of the bed, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling as the estate breathed around her, soft footsteps in distant corridors, the muted hum of generators, the occasional click of a door locking somewhere she couldn't see. Every sound now carried meaning. Every silence felt intentional. Ji-hoon's words replayed in her mind, stripped of their polish. The woman wandering off worked better than expected. Not wandered. Released. The realization settled into her chest like a second heartbeat, slow, heavy, impossible to ignore. Mrs. Park hadn't escaped by accident. She had been used. Naomi sat up, dread tightening her throat. She thought back to the storm, to the way the old woman had waited obediently in the rain, to the certainty in her voice when she said he told me to wait. Not confusion. Conditioning. Trust weaponized against her. And Naomi had been the variable Ji-hoon hadn't planned for. By morning, fear had transformed into something sharper. Responsibility. She moved through the estate differently now, eyes open, posture alert. What had once felt like watchfulness now felt like pressure, the sense of being nudged toward a conclusion someone else had already written. Guards nodded politely. Staff avoided her gaze. Ji-hoon didn't appear, which unsettled her more than his presence ever had. She found Mrs. Park in her suite by the window, hands folded neatly in her lap, staring out at the garden. "Good morning," Naomi said gently. Mrs. Park smiled then frowned. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked. The question hit Naomi harder than any threat. "No," she said quickly, kneeling in front of her. "You didn't do anything wrong." The old woman's fingers trembled as they reached for Naomi's sleeve. "They were angry last time. I heard shouting." Naomi's jaw tightened. "They won't hurt you," she promised, though she wasn't sure to whom she was lying. Later, as she helped Mrs. Park eat, Naomi noticed something else. New guards positioned outside the suite. Different men. Tighter expressions. Security didn't fluctuate without reason. Someone was moving pieces. That afternoon, Ji-hoon returned. He found Naomi in the garden, standing near the koi pond, watching the fish move in slow, careless circles. "You look troubled," he said, as if commenting on the weather. "You lied," Naomi replied without turning. Ji-hoon chuckled softly. "I prefer to think of it as selective honesty." She faced him then. "You let her out." His smile faltered, just for a fraction of a second. "Enough." "Careful," he said. "Accusations imply courage." "I heard you," Naomi said. "You planned it. You used her to test him." Ji-hoon studied her now, the mask slipping. "And what did you learn from that test?" he asked. "That you're trying to make him look weak." The silence between them sharpened. Ji-hoon exhaled slowly. "The world is changing," he said. "Leadership requires adaptation. Sentimentality is expensive." "She's his mother." "Yes," Ji-hoon agreed coolly. "And that makes her leverage." Naomi's stomach turned. "You're positioning yourself," she said. "You want his throne." Ji-hoon smiled again, but this time there was no warmth in it. "I want stability," he said. "And kings who hesitate invite war." "And I'm what?" Naomi asked. "Collateral?" Ji-hoon stepped closer. "You are inconvenient," he said softly. "You witnessed the wrong moment. You care too much." Fear surged, but it was no longer paralyzing. It was clarifying. That night, Naomi stood outside the boss's office, heart pounding so loud she was sure the guards could hear it. She had rehearsed this moment a dozen times, weighing every outcome. Silence meant survival, for now. Speaking meant fire. But silence also meant complicity. She knocked. "Enter," came the voice inside. Calm. Commanding. He stood by the window, city lights stretched beneath him like a map of conquered territory. He didn't turn when she stepped in. "You've decided something," he said. Naomi swallowed. "Yes." "Speak." She took a breath. Your mother didn't wander off, she said. She was let out. He turned then, slowly. The air shifted. By whom? He asked. Jihun, Naomi said. He disengaged security. He wanted her vulnerable. He wanted you exposed. The silence that followed was immense. Naomi continued, words tumbling now. He's been watching you. Testing you. Calling you cautious. Weak. He's building a case for himself. The boss's eyes never left her. You are certain, he said. Yes. Why tell me? Naomi met his gaze. Because she trusted you to protect her. And because if I don't speak now, I become part of it. For a moment, something raw flickered across his face. Rage, grief, betrayal, all colliding behind a disciplined exterior. He opened his mouth to respond. The first shot shattered the window behind him. Glass exploded inward as gunfire ripped through the room, the sound deafening, violent, final. Alarms screamed. Men shouted. The world collapsed into chaos. Naomi ducked instinctively as the second wave of bullets tore through the space where she had been standing seconds earlier. The betrayal was no longer theoretical. It had arrived, armed and loud. The office became a storm of sound. Gunfire chewed through polished wood and shattered glass, the air thick with smoke and splinters. Naomi hit the floor hard as the boss moved faster than she thought possible, a blur of controlled violence. He grabbed her by the collar and dragged her behind the heavy desk just as bullets stitched the wall where her head had been. Stay down, he ordered, already firing back with brutal precision. Men flooded the doorway, dark shapes, coordinated, confident. This wasn't chaos. This was a plan finally allowed to breathe. Then Jihun stepped into view. He didn't rush. He never did. His suit was immaculate, his smile calm, almost indulgent, as if he were arriving late to a meeting he'd already won. I told you, Jihun said over the gunfire, voice carrying effortlessly. Hesitation invites replacement. The boss's jaw tightened. You let her out, he growled. My mother. Jihun's smile sharpened. I opened a door, he corrected. Fate did the rest. Or would have, if not for her. His gaze dropped to Naomi, crouched behind the desk, heart hammering. She wasn't supposed to matter. Jihun continued. That's the problem with sentiment. It introduces variables. A grenade clinked against the far wall. The boss reacted instantly, throwing his weight over Naomi as the explosion thundered through the room, rattling her bones and tearing the breath from her lungs. Pain flared across his back, but he didn't cry out. Move, he snapped, pushing her toward the side corridor as smoke poured in. Naomi's mind cut through the panic with clinical clarity. The ventilation system. She remembered it from earlier, sealed, localized, designed to protect privacy. She remembered the medical cart station just outside the office for emergencies. She remembered what she carried in her bag, always. Cover me, she shouted. He didn't question her. He never did. Naomi crawled low, bullets cracking overhead, and reached the cart. Her hands shook as she grabbed a vial, concentrated sedative, aerosolized for emergency restraint situations. Not lethal. Fast-acting. Dangerous in enclosed spaces. She twisted the cap, jammed the canister into the vent intake, and triggered it. Nothing happened. Then the air shifted. Men began coughing. Shouting. Gunfire turned wild and accurate. One man stumbled, retching, his weapon clattering to the floor. Panic rippled through Jihun's soldiers as the invisible threat tightened around their lungs. What did you do? Jihun snapped, fury finally cracking his composure. The boss surged forward, a force unleashed, disarming one attacker with a bone-breaking twist, dropping another with a single brutal strike. The room devolved into close combat, fists, bodies, grunts of pain echoing against marble and steel. Jihun backed away, drawing a knife from inside his jacket. This didn't have to be ugly, he snarled. It always was, the boss replied, advancing. They collided with devastating force. Jihun was fast, desperate, fueled by ambition, but the boss was precise. Every movement carried weight, experience, finality. They crashed into furniture, shattering it, the fight intimate and savage. Naomi scrambled to the boss's side as he staggered, blood blooming dark against his shirt. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." Jehun lunged again, a hidden blade flashing. The boss caught his wrist, twisted, and drove his elbow into Jehun's throat with a sound that ended everything. Jehun collapsed, lifeless, ambition silenced at last. The room fell quiet. Too quiet. The boss dropped to his knees. Naomi was there instantly, pressing her hands to his side, blood slick and hot beneath her fingers. The wound was deep. Too deep. "Stay with me," she commanded, voice shaking but fierce. "You do not get to leave." He laughed weakly. "Still giving orders," he murmured. "Pressure," she muttered, tearing fabric to bind the wound. "You're losing too much blood." His hand found hers, grip surprisingly strong. "You came back," he said, eyes glassy. "You could have stayed invisible." "I don't disappear," she said fiercely. "Not like that." His breathing hitched. "My mother, did she?" "She's safe," Naomi said quickly. "I promise." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Good," he whispered. "She always waited so patiently." His eyes fluttered. His grip loosened. "No," Naomi said, panic breaking through. "Look at me. Look at me." He tried. Failed. His head fell back. His body went slack. For one terrible moment, the world held its breath. Then silence. The storm passed without ceremony. No headlines. No sirens. No explanation offered to the outside world. By morning, the shattered glass had been replaced, the blood scrubbed from marble floors, the bodies removed as if they had never existed. The estate breathed again, controlled, quiet, intact. And the boss lived. Naomi sat beside his bed in the private medical wing, hands folded, eyes fixed on the steady rise and fall of his chest. Machines hummed softly around him, indifferent witnesses to how close the world had come to losing its center. The wound had been deep, the doctors said. Minutes deeper, and there would have been nothing left to save. But minutes mattered. Days later, his eyes opened. He didn't speak at first. Just looked at her, gaze sharp even through exhaustion, as if confirming she was real. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough, stripped of command. "You stayed." Naomi nodded. "Someone had to." Jehun's name was never mentioned again. His absence settled into the structure like a corrected flaw, quietly absorbed. The men who had followed him were gone. Those who remained moved with renewed precision, loyalty recalibrated around survival. The empire stabilized, not through spectacle, but through certainty. Orders were issued. Lines redrawn. Weakness cauterized. There was no war. There didn't need to be. Power, once reclaimed, didn't need to shout. When the boss finally stood again, he did not summon Naomi. He walked to her himself. "You are not staff," he told her. No threat in his voice now. No testing. "You are not a witness. You are not a liability." She waited. "You are here because I chose you," he continued. "Because you chose to stand when silence would have protected you." Naomi felt the weight of it, not romance, not fantasy, but alignment. Loyalty earned through action. Through blood and resolve. Mrs. Park sat in the garden that evening, wrapped in a blanket, the storm only a memory. She smiled when she saw Naomi, reached for her hand. "Did you wait with me?" she asked. "Yes," Naomi said softly. "I did." The boss watched them from a distance, hands clasped behind his back, the city spread out beyond the gates like a living thing he no longer needed to dominate, only protect. Rain began again later that night, gentle this time. A reminder, not a warning. Naomi stood beside him, not behind, as thunder rolled far away. And the question lingered, unanswered, heavy as the sky itself. If you were standing beside a man who could burn the world to protect you, would you feel safe? Or would you always be waiting for the next storm?